everyone, and welcome to our post-games interview updates. I'm your host, Lauren Khalil. Our show is brought to you by Reebok. The Nano X2, the official shoe of fitness, was created with the training community front and center, gathering feedback from its athlete partners, local gyms, fitness influencers, and more to create a product that all athletes can thrive in. With the gum bottom, the white ones, I love them. It's the perfect summer shoe. Check out the link in our description to get your hands on a pair. On today's episode, we have Brent Fikowski. Less than a week. The games are over. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Physically pretty recovered, mentally and emotionally getting there. But yeah, no, we're good here.
I mean, as a veteran athlete of the games, what is the process when you leave to really decompress and digest everything that went on?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the athlete. For me, oh man, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of typing. So just like typing and typing and typing everything I can think of, kind of just like dumping it all in there for a few days. I have a tough time sleeping after every competition because my mind's just kind of racing. And so after this one was no different. And it's the same after when one goes particularly well, like, if I finish on the podium or, I won Granite Games. And yeah, just like lots of typing, just everything I can think of that happened. And then a couple days after that, start to kind of organize it. And it kind of helps me to put it in the past, turn everything into like actionable lessons, or just if I did make mistakes, just leave them in the past and focus on the present. And then it's just trying to catch up on sleep. There's a lot of packing because when you finish the games, you're given so much stuff at the games.
Oh,
Props to
yeah.
all the sponsors, whether that's Yeti, obviously Noble, the freaking sunglasses, Gooder. Like there was just so much free stuff, which grateful for. And then you buy a little extra food, so you bring a bit of that back, and so just a lot of packing to try and get it all home somehow. And then yeah, kind of come back home here and just been mostly cooking and cleaning and tidying my gym and doing a bit of painting. And I think I probably have some paint on my arms right now. And then kind of get back into training, and everyone gets back into training at a different pace. Some people, it's 4 days, other people it's 4 weeks, and it just depends on the person and the year.
This year, the games, different experience, especially than last year. 16th overall after standing on the podium. I'm sure so many fans, I mean, myself included, it was bizarre seeing you not in the first heat. Give us an idea of how were you feeling going into the games? Like, kind of let us into the mind of Brent Fikowski.
Yeah, no one was more surprised than me that I wasn't in that top heat. I think every competition I've ever been to, live competition, I think with the exception of like the 2019 games, I've been in the top heat after, the first day or so. And, kept battling and just was never able to make it there. And, I think what's important is that I give props to the men that beat me, right? The 15 men. Like it's easy for me to make, reasons or excuses or come up with this or that. And I got to be careful. Obviously, privately, I'm gonna find things I did wrong and work to improve on them and learn from them. But it's kind of like publicly, I want to make sure that it's like those 15 guys. It's not like they had a perfect season, right? It's not like they had a perfect weekend. I'm sure all of them have dozens of things they did wrong during the competition and things they would change, and they were still able to get more points than me. So it's no slight on them. And for me, like I went into the competition feeling great, feeling really good, really excited, pretty excited to compete, nervous as always, but like felt like myself. And yeah, just didn't do so well compared to what I'm used to. Obviously guys that finished 17th, 18th and lower would have rather been 16th. So you got to put that in perspective. But it was challenging. Not used to having less cameras on me, for example, and doing less interviews. It's just like a very different experience for me. Just used to more of that kind of experience, and it was different. And I have to continue to reflect and make sure that I do what I can to put myself back up there. And I believe that that's very possible, and that's all that really matters. Whether or not other people believe that is up to them.
But I mean, when you arrived to Madison, you put a post on Instagram, your face, it was finally on the Coliseum. That's how you know that you've made it big time at the games. So like the momentum had to be there. You had to be feeling great. And then like day by day, I think you mentioned too that you don't even look at the leaderboard. You have a team that looks at the leaderboard to kind of keep you in check, knowing like how many points you need to get. At any point during the week though, did you kind of know where you were?
Yeah, you can pretty easily do the math because you're like, well, I'm not in the top heat, and I'm on the side lane of the not top heat, so I'm probably about 19th right now, or I'm right here, so I'm
Okay.
probably about 30th. Like, it's I definitely knew I wasn't fighting for a podium spot, kind of thing. Obviously, like yeah, at a certain point in the weekend, I basically was kind of after the shuttle run jerk. I'm kind of like, all right, like you're not going to be on the podium here, pal. You like didn't mean I quit trying, um, but it was like change of expectations a little bit. You just need to like keep doing your best and keep climbing, but it's like it's clear that you're kind of a step behind where you need to be to kind of climb to that position. So, but yeah, it was you know I, I was thinking about it today, what I was going to say on this call. And I think that I'm a pretty realistic guy, if anything, a pessimist over an optimist. But as an athlete, I think I do a pretty good job of like brainwashing myself and, like leading into pretty much every competition. I tell myself, man, like you're so fit right now. Like everything's been going so good. You're crushing it. This was a great season. Like, let's do this. And then as soon as the competition's over, there's like the come down from that. And then you have like some more frank and open conversations with the coach because they're trying to brainwash me too, right? You want the confidence high. And then, you kind of do look back and you go, yeah, like there were some signs that things weren't maybe, you know, both to my own doing and some things out of my control maybe. And yeah, I don't know. I realize that didn't really answer any questions, but it's honestly it's tough, right? It's like you go in preparing for success, but also being ready for adversity. And it's one thing to like say you're ready for adversity, and then when you're like I said, I'm just kind of always used to being in the top heat, and so when you're not in that top heat, it's just like a different energy. And you know, I kind of wasn't in some ways prepared for what that was like. And I look back on each workout, and my positive self talk was still there, and I still pretty confident in every event I gave a good effort, but it was just a different experience. And I need to be better, right? It's like I need to be better. There's things that I need to work on, and there's things I know I can get better at that I've been better at before, like running, for example. And um, yeah, and there's just time that needs to be spent there, which I'm looking forward to.
You mentioned that you felt frustrated and disappointed. And I guess I'm wondering, when you look at your games experience this past year, are those feelings because of your effort, or are you feeling that way because the field was so competitive this year and you honestly couldn't control the outcome? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean that's the tough thing with CrossFit is you don't really know, right? You don't
Mhm.
know, it's a combination of how good is everyone else, what are the workouts, how fit are you, how well are you executing these workouts relative to what you're capable of, right? All those things are kind of constantly in flux. If I was competing in like the 100-meter dash, a world class time is kind of always a world class time. If you can run a 9.9, you can win almost any event in the world, right? Or a 9.8 or 10.1 or whatever it is. Um, CrossFit's just like constantly changing. So maybe it's, there's certain things I worked my butt off this year on that, weren't as tested and vice versa. Um, but I don't think it was really the workouts. Yeah, I don't know. It's honestly, if I'm being honest, like there's certain things I'm just private about in my training and my life, right? And that's something that there was a time where I was more open about those things in prior years. Um, about just a bunch of things. And I don't know, since my wife and I decided to have a kid, which was, a year ago. Just kind of decided that there's just certain things that are, I'll talk about certain things. There's other things I won't talk about. And just kind of,
Okay, a little bit cryptic, but that's
but
okay.
no, but like,
Yeah,
and like,
you have a
not,
personal life too.
yeah, I have a personal life. And so it's, I can say with confidence, like, I did everything I could this year, like
Mhm.
you know, I, it wasn't, there was not a lack of, if anything, I trained too much, you know what I mean? Like there was, if there's some decline in my fitness, or if people perceive there's a decline in my fitness, it's certainly not for lack of effort. It's not due to the choices. I mean, it could be choices in programming. Um, but yeah, it's like I don't want to use as an excuse. Oh, I just, like, kind of took a lazy year this year. Like we'll bring it
Mhm.
back next year. I wasn't trying this year. It's like, no, like I did everything every single day. Like the documentary I made a few years ago, all in. I was all in this year, just like I am every year. And there's no, it doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes. But it's like every session, every day, I was doing everything I could to try to maximize this weekend. And it's hard when, like, the entire year is sort of capstone by the games and you get to look back and say, it all made sense. We freaking did it. Or it capstones the year and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe we did all that stuff and it didn't work. And then it also sets the tone and it sort of sets the stage and it is the blank canvas for the next year. And, like, with a lower finish at the games, it's like I might not get invites to off-season competitions,
Mm.
right? So then it's like, then, do you try to qualify for those off-season competitions? Do you just not compete in the off-season? You have to kind of rebuild that brand because you're only as good as your last competition, in CrossFit. So, it's yeah, it's challenging. It's frustrating. During the weekend, I wasn't really frustrated. It was just like I was very aware of what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like kicking cans and cursing and stuff. It was just like, oh man, like like I could see someone like Roman. I'm like, that guy is on fire right now.
Mm.
Like he
Mhm.
is like, he's like freaking like vibrating, with like this, like, just with like energy. It's like, there's clearly
Yeah.
this, like, there's something special going on with him right now. And I'm like, oh, that's probably what people saw with me last year. Like, oh man, Brent is a man on fire. Like, there's just like something going on there. There's this like energy and this like clear, like, oh, he's up here. And I just wasn't up there this year. And I believe that I can get back there, because I know what needs to happen. And, like, it's like, if anyone knows, it's me, because I've been there as many times as most people. But, yeah, I realize it's still kind of cryptic, but yeah, it was challenging. It was challenging. Still positive experiences from the weekend. Try to, like, remember the positive things, and then just a massive list of things, both like in programming, like, obviously like my training, like the sets and reps, so to speak. But then even just a few small like tweaks, kind of like mentally and emotionally and strategically and stuff that can kind of be improved upon for next year. Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the programming, this is your 7th year at the games.
Yeah.
What was it like for you having like a whole new programmer? What were your overall thoughts, or, as you were breaking it down?
Um, I think when it all kind of unfolded by the end of the weekend, I think it was a really solid year. At the end of the day, like, we compete in a sport that, like, doesn't really have rules. So if you get too bent out of shape about, little details, you kind of drive yourself insane. And so I'm able to kind of compartmentalize it. And, like, I have my opinions on things, and, I even posted something on Instagram about the shuttle run jerk and how I don't think it should have been 200 points, but, like, it doesn't really change, my approach to the workout or my
Mhm.
training. And I've done really well in workouts like this that are 200-point events, like in Dubai in 2019. So it's like, it doesn't really change how I approach it. I can, realize, like, oh, I don't really think that makes much sense, but I'm going to do it. Um, and it's not going to change, like, my uh, emotions towards, like, competing or training or anything like that. But yeah, I think what was different this year was, typically in a year, we'll see anywhere from 2 to maybe 4, like, let's call them new things. So like last year,
Right.
there was the kayak and the freestanding handstand pushups. And then you could kind of argue the thruster wall walk workout was like, it was different. It was like way more potent and heavy and like overhead than what we'd seen before. It just felt like a very different workout, but those movements weren't new. The wall walk was introduced in the open, and we've done the thruster a lot, but never that heavy and never for that many reps. But other than that, it was just the kayak and the freestanding handstand push-up. You know, and you look the year before that, and there's only like again, a few things that are really new. It's like, oh, the drag rope double under, but we've done, you know, heavy double unders before with a heavy rope. And, you know, at the ranch, I don't even know, there might've been like one or two like little new things. Like, I guess there was biking with rope climbs. We've done that before. I wasn't there, so I'm struggling to remember the little details. But even 2019, you know, you think about the 2019 games, like, oh, was there was the toes to ring? I think that was about it, right? Like or the Go Ruck backpack, you know, but again, like we've done a weight vest. Whereas this year, I think there were 7 or 8 new skills introduced, right? Legless pegboard, pirouette handstand, press to handstand, single under, double under crossover, shuffle on the P bars, dip on the P bars. There would have been a legless rope climb from seated. There was a slightly different sled, which is kind of in that like sort of new, not really new. The new handstand push-up standard. So, you know, a lot more new stuff, which I don't think is necessarily bad, but it also kind of sets the tone for, okay, if there's 7 or 8, like, are there going to be 7 or 8 next year? Or was that just like this like huge dump of like, oh, we've been waiting to do all these. And now it's like, well, you know, what's the net for a lot of those things? It's like, you know, other than putting on a weight vest, like what's the kind of next progression? And there's a million for like handstands. Obviously there's a bazillion skills for those. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's different. And for me, like when I look at new things being added, I think overall it's great. It really comes down to, is the standard for that movement, is it going to be consistent? That's really all I care about, right? I mean, you can make us kind of do anything. It's like safety, obviously. And then is it just going to be consistently held? Like the pirouette was awesome because, you know, they said, spin around in the box on your hands, keep walking. Don't touch the outside of the box. And there was like, you know, one question, and then it's like, yeah, okay, I know what to do. Same with the press to handstand. Because like for the press to handstand, I mean, you could make some really stupid rules for that, right? You could say like, you know, feet together, toes pointed, knees locked, hips extended, elbows locked, and then show control to the top, pause, show control, whatever the heck that means, with your hips open, with your shoulders open, with your elbows open, with your hands without moving, you know, knees together, toes together, pointed up, and then control yourself back down. Don't fall back down, control yourself and bring yourself back to an L sit, this. You know, you could have like 20 points of performance, and inevitably like someone's going to get away with it that shouldn't have. Someone's going to get no rep when they shouldn't have. Someone got no rep when they should have, but it's not fair because someone got away with something that in fact shouldn't have counted. So they eliminated all that confusion and just said, hey, just start in like a support, knees or feet up, we don't really care, and then just turn yourself upside down and walk on your hands to the finish line. And there was like one question, anything else? And they're like, no, I guess that's it. Like that was super smart. I don't even know if I would have thought of, like, if someone said, Brent, you have to program press to handstand, how are you going to do it? I don't know if I would have thought of that. So like super smart. And then conversely, sometimes other movements are a little more challenging to judge consistently. So
okay, so then with all of these new movements, obviously for the athlete, it needs to be the unknown, unknowable. They want to test things that you haven't necessarily practiced. But when it comes to the judges, is there somewhat of a learning curve for them when they have to hold these standards that they haven't necessarily practiced?
yeah, so I don't know for sure exactly the you know, the process that the judges at the games go through. I don't know what that looks like. I will say, I know at semifinals, for example, I don't think there's like a lot of like education, for example, for those judges. Yeah, and so, you know, it's funny, like I was watching the like the double under crossovers, and I used to do some jump rope as a warm up for volleyball. So I'm like very used to seeing people do triple unders, quadruple unders, fast crossovers. So I just have an eye. I just have an eye for it. And so I was watching it, and someone was like, yeah, I wasn't sure if Nick Matthew was doing like singles or if he was actually doing like doubles. And I was like, oh, he was definitely doing doubles. And I was like, kind of, you know, like, what are you talking about? Of course he was. But then I realized, like, when I watch gymnastics and I watch someone jump and do a bunch of flips and land, I have no idea what I just saw. Right. Like, I don't know if they did 3 or 4 flips. I don't know how many twists they did. I don't know what their hands or their feet were doing. It's kind of just a blur. But my wife grew up with gymnastics, and she's like, oh, wow, that was a double this, triple that. I'm like, oh, like, no idea.
Mm.
And so I think that's kind of the thing. It's like, you need to see the skills at speed, frequently. And I think even at semis, I was talking to someone and they're like, yeah, like a lot of the judges at the semi that this person was at, they're pretty solid judges, but because of COVID, it's like it had been 2 years since they'd seen like elite athletes doing, whether it's thrusters or wall balls or handstand pushups, like at speed. And
Mm.
it's one thing to watch, a slow motion demo from someone being like, and this is a handstand pushup. And they go, see how the shoulder is locked. And they do like slow reps. I'm like, well, no one's doing them that slow, right? You kind of need to see these like points of performance and like kind of these hacks and like what you should be looking for. And I think, the good judges, and I think the judges at the games are good judges, are very familiar with that, with the movements they're familiar watching, right? Whether that's a 135-pound thruster or a handstand
Mm-hmm.
walk. But with a new movement, it's like, it's tougher. And I don't know what coaching they go through. And I think they do a fine job. I can't really say, like, I'm not performance reviewing the judges as a whole. I only really have like what I hear from other athletes and then what I personally experience. And so it's like, even like the handstand push-up workout, it's like, I don't know how strict my judge was, right? I just don't really know. Like, I remember getting 1 or 2 no reps, and my wife said she saw me get 6 or 7. And that's just, I have a short-term memory with that. Like, it's just something
Yeah.
that I learned through volleyball, where I just like, all right, like, go a little lower. And I just like, don't really dwell on it. I don't really get
Mm.
frustrated by it. So we don't even know I mean, she's right. She's always right. But
You're a smart
we don't,
man.
yeah, we don't know which one is right. And the live stream wasn't really watching me. So there's no way for me to really know, like, kind of even what happened. So it's like, I'm sure my judge I assume he did a great job, or she. I don't even remember if it was a girl or boy, or male, female. It was a little boy or a little girl.
Yeah.
No,
You
just a
really
little
don't
fella.
remember anything when you're out
No,
there.
I don't. It could have been I don't even know. It could have been a parakeet. Uh, so I remember I have a really good memory for certain things, but when it comes to no reps, I mean, it's not that I don't try to adapt to then meet the standard, but I don't like keep track of my no reps. It's not a good habit.
So with all the new
Anyway,
movements that we
yeah.
did see this year, were any of them ones that you have implemented in your training, or were most of them brand new to you?
I mean, like the crossovers, I haven't done a crossover in years, but I still knew how to do it. And so it's kind of like, that's kind of what some of the movements felt like. It was a bit of like, oh, I used to do this thing, like in high school, right? In the case of like
Mm-hmm.
Pat's like, oh, I used to be a gymnast, haven't been on parallel bars in a couple of years, but I like know how to do it. Or it's just, like, oh, like, turns out I can do this thing. At the end of the day, like, most of the skills, like, if you're really good at strict pull-ups, and you're really good at strict handstand push-ups, and you're really good at strict dips, um, you know, any new gymnastics skill they throw at you, or like if you're just really good at balancing on your hands, more or less any of the new gymnastics skills you're going to be fine with. And if you're really, really, really strong, if you have a big squat and a big deadlift, and you know how to do a power clean with perfect technique, more or less any odd object they throw at you that you have to pick up or throw over your shoulder or push or pull, you'll be fine. So I don't get, but it's still, it's like, I've done wall facing handstand push-ups. I mean, honestly, like, I spent quite a bit of time this year working on freestanding handstand push-ups,
Hmm.
because that's what we did last year. Right. So, like, I would have looked like a genius if those, hopefully looked like a genius if those came up and I was busting out, like 5 in a row in the middle of some workout. I'm like, oh, look at Brent, handstands, he's gotten so much better. And then there's wall facing, and I was not good at those. And it's just like a variation that maybe there's like, I got to figure out if there's a structural issue. Maybe it's like, a certain area of my delt that's weak, and we've been focusing more on like tricep or whatever that is. Because yeah, there's some guys that I saw do the stricts, and I'm like, I feel like I'm better at strict handstand push-ups than that person, and they were just busting out the wall facing, and I struggled with them. So I don't know if it's like a position thing, or there's just like a certain way they're structurally sound that allows them to be successful in a slightly different variation of an overhead press. Whereas like, in a different way, maybe it's like, yeah, I don't know, something to ponder over and then just train. But yeah, I've done legless rope climbs from seated, which we didn't get to do. But I've done those before, but that's not to say I'm like, I would have like crushed them or something, right? There's a difference between like, oh, I've practiced, I run once a week. It's like, there's a difference between doing that and, running a 4-minute mile, right? So there's levels.
With that event specifically, they took out the ropes because it was raining. It was a safety thing. Do you think that was the right call? Do you think they should have moved the event inside? What are your thoughts on that, especially with, everything you've done with the PfaA and, making sure that athletes' safety is a priority?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I've talked to some people already, some coaches and some athletes who've had different opinions on it. The interesting thing is all these workouts are made up anyway. And if the workout was just if they just waited longer to announce the workout and they just said it's sled pushes and kettlebells, it's going to be sick, we would have all just done it and no one would be complaining. But because they announced it with rope climbs and they removed it, obviously some people are upset, saying, well, that would massively change the leaderboard. And it would. I'm not denying that. Obviously, if you put in legless rope climbs, the people finishing high in that event, it could completely turn itself upside down, because it's like just sleds and just kettlebells, heavier, stronger power athletes. All of a sudden you have the legless rope climbs. The workout's probably another 8 minutes long, 6 minutes long, maybe. And the lighter athletes, the legless rope climbs are probably more so the separator. So yeah, I completely agree that the leaderboard would change, but it's like, we don't have any rules that dictate what is and what is not a balance test for a weekend competition. So to like really get like upset about, oh, they removed this movement due to safety, it's like, well, if we really start like hammering that, we don't want that, then the smart thing to do as a competition would say, well, we're just going to announce every workout right before it happens. And you'll never know if we change it last minute anyway. Not to mention, you'll never know if we change it. Theoretically, as a competition, you could change workouts to try to create a closer points race. So like, if I'm or let's say Pat's in the lead and I'm in second by 100 points, they're like, oh man, we want it to be closer. Let's put in more wall balls and swimming. Right. Whereas I think the workout should be locked, sealed, delivered, 1 or 2 weeks before the competition, no changes. But with weather, and also it's like, we all want to professionalize the sport, right? That's something everyone keeps talking about. It's the buzzword. And most people, that is money. And, if you want to be on CBS, you got to be on time. And there was a strict schedule to be live on Sunday, and that had to happen. So they were racing against the clock to try to get us out there to finish that workout, to then be on live TV for the yoke carry, heavy deadlift, and the finale Jackie Pro. Those were live on CBS. And being live on CBS, if that goes well and continues to go well, everyone makes more money. So it's like something had to happen, right? Like rubber meets the road. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to not do the workout? Are you going to do, I don't know, L-sit strict pull-ups, or, something has to happen. And so they made a decision, and I don't believe they made the decision like maliciously. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but I think it's, again, like the way I see it, some people, and rightfully so, were upset that the programming changed, and therefore, their position on the leaderboard of the athlete they're supporting could have massively changed due to that. And I don't deny that for a second. However, you kind of take that a step further, and it's like, there's no rules on the programming anyway. We could have done a whole weekend and never went upside down, or we could have done a whole weekend and never did any pulling. And then we'd be complaining, oh, there was no pulling. Compared to what? The 100 words of fitness or the CrossFit Journal, or based on our experience of like what the games traditionally looks like the sort of general trends. It's like, oh, we typically do a handstand walk workout. We typically do a handstand push-up workout. We typically do a rope climb, bar muscle up, ring muscle up, chest to bar, like pegboard. Like those are the things we usually do until we don't. And then, some people say it's great. Some people say it's bad. So it's hard to like complain about the addition or subtraction of a movement due to the weather when we could just complain about the addition or subtraction of a movement just cause, like there was no barbell snatches, right? It's like maybe the first year there was dumbbell snatches. So it's like, why? Well, cause, I don't know. I feel like the weather, again, it's like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there's an answer in that situation. You can't please everyone, and they made a call, and I don't think it was a bad call. Whether or not it was the right call is like completely subjective.
Sure. So what is your role then with the PFAA while you're competing at the CrossFit Games? Because obviously there are some of these topics that could come up, whether it's athlete safety, having the bar heights be good for the taller and the shorter athletes. So where do you fall in line there? Because I mean, you're there to compete.
Yeah, and I what you said, I'm there to compete. So like during the games, I'm not really actively doing anything on behalf of the PFAA or communicating with CrossFit on behalf of the PFAA. Leading up to the event, some of the athletes reached out to me to kind of ask a question, or they wanted to relay something to CrossFit they weren't really comfortable asking themselves. So I was able to do that for them, followed up with them at the games to kind of see how that went, and made some progress on a few little things. And then during the games, let me put it to you this way. After the games is done, I'm making this long list of things that like I need to improve on, and kind of like recalling the weekend. And in doing so, inevitably, I'm like thinking of things to kind of bring up with CrossFit, ways they can maybe improve the event, give them some feedback. And I'll be reaching out to athletes and coaches as well to kind of like just get that feedback, because CrossFit wants it. They reached out, only a couple days after the games, scheduling a call to, kind of get our feedback. And then, talk about some stuff that's coming up as well. But during the games right now, like there's not really I think in time, there could be potentially a person there. It wouldn't be, I don't think it could be an athlete that's competing, that could maybe like vouch on behalf of athletes. And there could be like a private, I don't know, discussions or something between the athletes if there felt like there was something that was unfair, unsafe, and see what we could do to change that. It just all happened so fast, and the PFA is still quite new. And I'll admit I've done 10% of what I hope to have done by now, right? And there's still like a million things that the PFA could be used to do, and hopefully we accomplish 5 of those things. But there's a lot of interest as well, like a lot of managers and kind of athletes and coaches came to me during the weekend, like expressing that they wanted to help and they wanted to see it do this, and they wanted to know like what the next step was. And that's exciting because we don't get to see each other all year. It's all just kind of like emails and Zoom calls, and it's not quite the same. So it's nice to get some longer conversations, just in between events or after the event. At the after party, I was sitting and chatting with a few people on some fun ideas. But as far as at the event, it definitely wasn't really on my mind at all. Just trying to do as well as I could. Yeah, which went okay, but
you did what you could. You did what you could.
I know,
Brent.
it's tough.
We're out there rooting for you.
Yeah, so like halfway through this call, for those of you still tuned in, we had to cut the video. There's a video cut, so if you can find the video cut, there's technical errors. And then during that little break, there was a pause. And I was thinking, and I'm like, what do I tell these people? Like, they want to know, like, what happened? Why did you come 16th and not 3rd or 2nd or 4th or 4th? Those are my best games finishes.
Why did you bust so many brackets? That's the real question we're asking.
I mean, it wasn't for lack of trying. And like, I really don't like making any excuses. It was not for lack of effort. It was not for lack of trying. And, trust me, if any of you have thought about it, I've thought about it 10 times more than you have, probably 100 times more than you. And I made the mistake of reading a few comments and
Oh no.
Yeah, I
Don't
know.
do
You know
it.
what? It's,
Don't do
I
it,
know. Don't do
Brent.
it. Don't do it. Right. And most people are super positive. Um, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like I believe that I can still, make my way back up into that upper echelon of athletes, whether that be at, the next competition here, or whether that be at semis, and I believe at the games as well. And that's kind of all that really matters. As far as busting people's brackets, my bad. I mean, I would have bet on me too. If that means anything, I would have bet on me too. And hopefully that doesn't mean I'm just like so out of touch now that I'm completely unaware what it takes. But things are crazy. I mean, I feel like I had a pretty solid Granite games,
Mhm.
and then just 2 months later, a couple of those guys were able to, that I beat there, were able to beat me at the CrossFit Games, and so I have to figure out, I still have to figure that out. To be completely honest with you, like I don't really have all the answers. There's still some stuff I have to talk with my coaches about, and test a few workouts and kind of yeah, I don't know. I really wish I had just a definitive answer, like I broke my toe, or like, or
Right. Well, I was waiting to hear like there was some injury that you were dealing with,
no,
and obviously nobody wants to show their cards while they're at the games. But I mean, I feel like this is just a very honest response. Like you gave it your all, and those were the
yeah,
results.
yeah. I mean, it is a crazy, crazy sport. Like I spoke with someone, like like the bike workout. I'll talk with some with a little less cryptic about the bike workout. So I didn't spend much time biking this year. Um, Decent amount on the C2, like a bit on the road bike, and so I went for a road bike. Some intense road bikes leading up to the games, like let's say 3 or 4, and was tracking my heart rate and my pace on the road bikes, biking some routes that I've biked before, and comparing my times to what I've done before. And they were good. They were really good. They felt great. The times were better or the same as they have been in the past. And so in 2017, I came ninth in a bike workout. 2018, I came, I think, 12th, or swap those. So like ninth and 12th. I'm like, man, I feel good on the bike right now. This should go well. And then this year on the bike, I think I came 33rd. And so, you look at that workout, and I've also been working on my toes to bar and my chest to bar quite a bit, and they are better than they have been in the past. And so I come 33rd, and you go, okay, was that because maybe everyone's just made a leap in the bike since 2018, right? Like people are just better on the bike, and I'm like more or less the same. Like I'm better too, but it hasn't been a priority, because it's like when you come ninth and 12th in a bike workout, you're going to focus on your handstand push-ups and your deadlift, right? Like those
Yeah.
are your back squat or whatever, because those are the areas that in those years and in the last year as well, that held me back. So then you look at that and you go, okay, was it because I just need to get way better at biking? Was it because the bike wasn't fitted to me? Was it because my RPM, like I've been practicing on a road bike with clip-ins, and this was just just
Mm.
normal. I just wore my nanos, not clip-ins, and so I'm used to going at a pretty high RPM. Um, and I was going, so like 90 to 95 RPM, which isn't like an insane RPM. It's a pretty standard biking RPM. But was it the combination of the chest to bar and the toes to bar, the time I lost on those relative to someone like Koski? Obviously, he's faster on those. And then my heart rate's elevated, and then spinning that fast, was it then keeping my heart rate elevated? If I would have just pedaled slower, would I have then kind of focused a little more of like the blood and the energy kind of towards my legs, allowing my breathing, my heart rate to kind of settle down a bit, get the pump in the legs, and kind of alternate between those? Was So it's like there's all these questions, and you're like, you don't really know, right? Like
Hmm.
it's probably all those things and also none of those things. Like it could have just been, hey Brent, like if you did that exact same workout in 2018, you would have come dead last, so you actually improved 7 spots. Or is it just the field of bikers, again, like the field in 2018, 2017, it's different men, right? So
Hmm.
like maybe some of the like outlier guys that didn't quite make it then, that whatever, they just happen to be good at bike. So that's like one example of a workout where I'm like, okay, that was a bad finish. I need to improve that for next year. I think it's primarily I just need to get fitter on the bike. And I'll continue to work on my toes bar and chest bar. But it's like, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I'm dealing with. It's like, well, I
Yeah.
came ninth and 12th in a bike, so not really a huge priority in my training. Still felt pretty fit on the bike, was able to test some workouts, had some fun up to training, feeling pretty confident. And then you come 33rd and you go like, okay, is that because the toes to bar, the chest to bar, how the two combined? Was it the bike? Was it the size of the bike? Was it because I chose too high of an RPM? And then you're kind of left with that. And that just kind of felt like many workouts were like that, where I'm kind of like, oh, like what is the, I think in general I just need to get fitter. I don't think I was fit enough compared to everyone else. So anyway,
Fair
a, lo- a
answer.
long
Fair answer.
a long-winded thing, but that's kind of a more in-depth, like just from a singular workout perspective.
Mhm.
That's it, and so it's tough. I've talked to other athletes, some kind of veterans who they're like, oh, I really worked on this particular skill or this like energy system or modality, and it didn't quite show up in the way I thought, or I thought it was going to go a lot better. It went so well in training, and today it just felt weird. And then you're kind of like, was that whole training, the thing I worked on 4 times a week for 52 weeks, was that all for nothing? Or was it just bad timing? Or was it that judge note? There's all these kind of things.
Mhm.
And it's sometimes things just fall into place, and it kind of feels like you're in Ocean's 11 and you like skirt out just in time and you're like, we pulled it off, baby. And then sometimes you're kind of just like left there and you got the bag in your hand and then there's just guns all around you and they say freeze and you go, uh-oh. It kind of just felt like that, where you're like, what is happening? Like usually things don't go this bad. I don't know. So it's definitely lit the fire to train again, and just to continue to chip away at it and try to experience that Ocean's 11 vibe again, and
Good.
just prove to myself I've still got it. So
That's what
hopefully
we wanted to hear.
hopefully folks are still willing to come along for the ride, and maybe I'll be in some brackets next year, maybe I won't, and we'll see, baby.
Brent, if anything, people are along for the ride on your Instagram. There might be some people who think
Good.
Lauren's burying the lead. Why isn't she asking about Brent's really cool Instagram posts? As other athletes are posting like the play by play of every single event, I'm scrolling the internet. I'm like, who's got some good stuff out here? And I come across your post of event 2, the skill speed medley, and you have 1 through 27. It's like I almost feel like I'm sitting in an exam room and it has all of these options. And then you have to place like the correct definition with the name.
Yeah.
Give us what I need to know everything about this. How did you come up with putting this post together? What was going through your mind? Like, spill the tea. Tell us what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, so in like, for those of you that have been longtime fans, in 2000, like 16, 17, 18, even 19, I think, I did these like really deep daily recaps of the games, right? It was either, sometimes it was audio, sometimes it was like written on a blog. And it was just kind of a way to like show people a bit of behind the scenes, like what was going on, what was happening. And I did it because Rob Forte did it in, I think, 2013. And it was something that I really enjoyed reading, his like how things went. And so, kind of wanted to bring that back this year, do some, and just, but kind of mix it up, because it's like, oh, I warmed up, I was a little worried. And so anyway, with this one, I was just like starting to write down things I remembered and then trying to find a way to kind of piece that. And it just sort of came about where I'm like, well, there's just so many crazy things that happened during that, like from the time it was announced to the time it ended, both that were told to me, that I witnessed personally, and then that happened to me, that I just felt like this was a kind of fun format to put a bit of anonymity, because I'm sure some of those stories people aren't going to tell, or it's not my story to say like, oh, that was Jim did this and swore at his judge, right? It's not my place to tell that story. But it was a crazy event, and like in a lot of ways, like reading that, like that's the CrossFit Games. Like that, like reading that and experiencing that, like that is what, as a CrossFit Games athlete, like that's kind of what you experience on, not on every event for sure, but every couple events, like that's the kind of like chaotic world that you don't really see on the Netflix documentary, right? They don't really cover that. And it's fine. Like, it's just like, that's what it is. It's dealing with that. Those sort of things happen to you. Those sort of things happen to your competitors, some of them to your friends, maybe your training partner. And you're like, kind of like, it's all happening around you all the time. And it's just like, that's the nature of the beast. And I figured I would just kind of lend a little insight into like what some of those things look like on a workout by workout basis.
I want to look at number 17. It says
Oh yeah,
there
sorry,
were
you read it.
rumors and speculation on Instagram starting a few weeks ago that press to handstand would be a new skill at the games, so I had been practicing. Can you give us more clarity on that? Like what you don't
So
need to say like who said that,
oh
but
yeah, so
yeah,
okay.
take it
So
away,
I
Brent.
was yeah. So I was at Big Dane CrossFit
Mhm.
on Sunday or Saturday, just before the game started, and I bumped into Austin Spencer and his wife Caroline Spencer, and we were
Mhm.
just shooting the breeze. And they said something like, "Oh, have you been practicing your press to handstands?" And I go, "What?" So I'm number 18, um, and
Yes.
that, so there's the T. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, well, it's like the buzz right now. Like everyone's doing it. Apparently." So I don't know where it came from. I think it was like, oh, someone thought they decoded what like Bosman said on a podcast where he said something like,
Ah.
you got to know your fundamentals, or you got to know your CrossFit journals or whatever it was that he
Mhm.
said. And then someone kind of like pieced that together and they guessed. They're like, I think what he was saying is press to handstand. That seems to be the thing that makes the most sense based on like, this little snippet from some interview with Chase Ingram. And I was like, well, like too late now, because I was like, my training was done and I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to fiddle with that. Yeah. Uh, yeah, so I was 18 and 17 was, Austin Spencer. But so I think I saw like Guy Bryant from France. He was practicing them on his Instagram like, a week or two ago or something. So yeah. I don't think it was leaked. Like I don't think it was a leak thing. I think someone just
Sure.
like pieced it together and then happened to be right. But they could have just have easily said, I don't know, something else. I mean, like how many CrossFit Journal articles are there? Like 1,000? 2,000? So, I'm sure if you dug through there, you'd find something,
Yeah.
and it would be, oh, rollerblading, and it's like, well, are you going to rollerblade every week? Like, I don't know, probably not. Maybe, So, they got lucky, I think, but it's not to say that I'm not going to maybe dig through some journal articles and like, but it's like you could make a list of like 10,000 things, right? And you're like, well, I don't know. Yeah.
What about number 9? I've sustained a bad injury from falling off a pegboard before, so it was nice to get a solid finish in this event.
Yeah, so I heard an athlete say that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think they had sustained an injury from a pegboard, falling off of a pegboard. This person, and I think it was in training. So I don't know if it was like they just didn't have enough mats underneath them, or
Mhm.
they slipped, or whatever. Maybe it was there were still mats. Um, yeah, so they had this person had sustained an injury a while ago. I don't even know how long ago it was. It might have been a long time ago, but yeah, and then they were able to conquer their fear, I suppose, and get a good score, and probably left them feeling pretty good.
I mean, regardless of knowing like who matches up with each of these, I thought that this was fascinating and so well thought out and just really cool to show people a little bit behind the curtain of some of the conversations with athletes. So, I
Yeah.
appreciated it. I had a great time reading through these.
Yeah, it's funny, like, when you finish the games, kind of, you leave with like really memories, right? I mean, sometimes more money than other years, and or a trophy or a medal, sometimes not. And but
Mhm.
sometimes, with just like little memories. And usually I was talking to someone about, you know, the CrossFit games and why do you do it and stuff. I'm like, most of my favorite memories aren't like winning the games, or like getting a medal, like standing on the podium and smiling. Like that's never the the moment, right? It's always these other little tiny things. It's like at the 2018 crit bike race, it's
Mhm.
like Ben Smith saying, we gotta catch that lead group. There was like 5 guys ahead, and then there were 5 guys, whatever, a couple of yards back. And Ben Smith yells out like, we gotta catch them. And then we're like, yes, Ben. And we all kind of charged up, and then we were all 10 of us were all mixing in. So it's little things like that kind of stuff is just like, special memory for me. And just like this year, there's little funny conversations, or just like little moments in a workout that you kind of see something in your peripheral. You're racing against someone that's just like, or you have like kind of a moment with your judge. You make eye contact or over something, and it's just like little things like that are kind of special. Yeah.
Brent, any final thoughts? What can we expect to see from you? I know that now is the off season and you're probably taking some time to like regather your thoughts, but for the fans.
For the fans, thanks so much for your fandom. I do appreciate it. Sometimes I forget. I tried to sign a few more things this year, and take some more photos and stuff, because it sometimes pretty cool. It's pretty wild. People care, I plan on competing more this off season. It's easy to say that right now. But plan on competing more, and hopefully, I still think the best is yet to come. So I'm excited to see, what's next. I think I've responded pretty well to poor competition finishes and rallied back in the past. And so I'm hoping I can, just do that again. And this will just be part of the story, get to write the next chapter. It's funny, in an ideal world, it would be awesome to have a career like, Froning or Fraser, where you're like, yeah, I came second that one time, and then I just won everything after that. Don't get me wrong, I would love that, but that's just not my story. Like, it's not.
That's not your style.
Oh man, I wish it was. Like, I wish it was. And it's not for lack of trying. And I don't think I've made many of the same mistakes twice, which is really all you can really ask for. But I don't know. It's just, that's not my story. And I'm sure a lot of the people listening, that's probably not their life story either. So, I'm just going to keep plugging away, and just looking forward to the next one, honestly. And looking forward to spending some time with the wife and kid, and seeing some family here, and just training hard and trying to have some fun with it. That's it.
Awesome. You deserve it. Brent, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being so open with us about your games this year, your posts on Instagram. We'll be watching through your journey, and we look forward to seeing you at the next off-season competition.
Yeah, hopefully we'll I think I briefly saw you at the games, but I don't think we got to do more than, did we even say hi? I think I saw you once.
I think it was like
yeah.
I'm going this way, you're going that way.
I know. I almost feel like everyone needs to just like create a pact and say, we're going to stay for like 4 more days. And then you can just like, just get in the rounds and get in some FaceTime. And like, you could get a lot done with everyone in a room, but one of these days we'll see.
We'll let you keep on planning that, because we know you're so good at making plans.
Yeah. I don't know.
You are, you're the coordinator of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. The Oz. All right. Well, this is it. This is the end of the podcast.
Yeah,
all right.
It's done. It's done. Thanks, Brent. We'll catch up with you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye.